Am I the a-hole for giving future mother-in-law 3 days to pay me for a new wedding dress? Or else I show the family a photo of her wearing it. So, I'm getting married to my fiancé soon. I bought my wedding dress weeks ago. My future mother-in-law kept pestering me about trying it on, but I firmly refused. I finally shut it down after she offered me $100 to let her try it on. Her reasoning for persisting so much. She says it's because of her love for wedding dresses and her obsession with them. Fast forward to yesterday. I came home from work early, and I found my fiancé at home. He freaked out after seeing me and tried to prevent me from going into my room while trying to text somebody on his phone. I opened the door and was shocked to see his mom standing there wearing my dress. I instantly pulled out my phone and took a photo of her in it. She and my fiancé freaked out after I told her that she needed to pay me for a new dress in 3 days, or else I'll show the whole family the photo. She started crying and then left, and my fiancé blew up at me saying I can't be serious and that I overreacted because his mom just wanted to try the dress on, no harm done. But I refused to listen to him because in my opinion, the dress should only be worn by the bride and the bride only. Quite frankly, I felt disgusted looking at the dress again. I don't want it anymore. And so I think it's fair that she pays me after she ruined it for me. He yelled at me and told me to wake up and stop treating his mom like that as if she was an enemy. We had a fight after he failed to get me to back down, and he's been staying with his mom since then. I felt awful, but I spent $3K on this dress and worked hard to get it. I can't stand looking at it. But people in my family think I'm escalating things and risking my relationship with not only future mother-in-law, but my fiancé as well. Am I the a-hole? Update. I thought I'd add some updates. My fiancé called and offered to pay for the dress himself so we can end the conflict. But he wants me to hand him my phone so he can delete the photo himself. Swear that I don't have any copies to use against his mom later. Apologize to his mom. And lastly, he asked that I quit his family group chat and log out of Facebook for at least a month. I haven't responded yet. P.S. He called with this offer, conditions hours ago. But I didn't want to include this in the post. But now I did. Also, I'm not sure if I'll agree because I don't want him to pay for it. I want his mom, the one who wore it, to pay for it. Not being vicious, but trying to hold her accountable. Am I the a-hole for having a dry wedding and serving only water for drinks? Okay, so basically my husband and I are getting married later this year. Each of our sides of the family are fairly big. It will be around 100 to 150 people total. My husband and I are paying for this all ourselves, as well as my grandma, who said she doesn't care one way or the other on this issue. She just loves weddings. We have a lot of kids in our family, so we decided against making it child-free. But we did decide to make it dry, so there will be no alcohol of any kind at our wedding. Honestly, this doesn't have anything to do with there being kids there, but due to the fact that my fiancé and I don't drink. Nothing against people who do. It's just not for us and we don't want to. On top of that, we only really drink water. We rarely, if ever, drink soda, so most of the time it's only water with the occasional juice and milk. We don't even drink coffee. So obviously the food, which is a part my grandma is not paying for, is going to be expensive for that many people. We are having our wedding catered so everyone will have a good choice of food to choose from. But to drink only water will be provided. We don't want to have to pay for alcohol or soda. It is just a large added expense when we can just do filtered water for a much cheaper cost. Well, when family and friends found out, got angry. Some didn't really care, but some are really upset about it, saying that I can just have an open bar. So I don't have to pay for drinks we could, but still have to pay for the bartender. And we just really don't want to bother with alcohol there. Or we should at least have soda, because how can we expect everyone to drink only water? The kids will be upset. The wedding will be boring. That this is not how weddings work, etc. So am I the a-hole? I didn't think this would be a problem. It's only water. I mean, don't most people drink water every day anyway? Should we pay the extra to have soda to make the family happy? Am I the a-hole for calling out my sister for breastfeeding at my wedding? My 30 female sister gave birth 2 months ago. She brought the baby to mine and my wife's 23 female wedding. She breastfeeds whenever she goes. We visit her house, she'll breastfeed in front of us. Visiting our parents, she'll breastfeed. Going out in a public setting, she'll sit on a bench on the park and breastfeed. Go out to a restaurant, she breastfeeds. Everywhere. I've never spoken on it because I know she'll get mad and offended. But when she did that on my wedding, I lost my cool. During the reception dinner, she just did it again. I kindly approached her and asked her why she didn't bring formula or at least bump milk out. and put it in the bottle so she wouldn't have to do all this at that moment. She said because I don't have to. I feel comfortable breastfeeding. Getting milk out on my own is more painful. I said she could just make the sacrifice and compromise for one day instead of doing this in front of 250 guests on my wedding. She then said she can't do much about it now because the baby has to have her milk. I told her she should be more thoughtful of that than instead of completely embarrassing herself and us by doing this. I told my wife what the deal was, and she said I'm in a hole and should immediately apologize to my sister. My parents also sided with my sister, and now pretty much everyone thinks I'm in a hole, since I'm the only person who had a problem with it. The only reason I decided to call her out is because I considered it a bad etiquette and tacky to do that at a formal event, and that she could just find another solution for that night. Am I the a-hole? Am I the a-hole for uninviting my cousins from my wedding for feeding info to my mom? I 28 male am an only child. When I was 12, my parents divorced when my dad found out my mom cheated on him. This was devastating to my dad. My parents were best friends and started dating when they were 17. I played sports, and my dad was my coach, so I had a much closer relationship to him than my mom. I was supposed to spend 1 week at my mom's, then the next week at my dad's, but I would usually just lock myself in my room at my mom's. Usually my dad would drop me off and I would get on my bike and ride the couple miles back to his house. My mom would ask me things and I would literally pretend like she didn't exist. It got so bad that lawyers got involved thinking my dad was turning me against my mom. My dad encouraged me to spend time with my mom, but I couldn't. My mom tried putting us in therapy, but I would just sit there till the time was up, not saying a word to her. Eventually my mom broke down and let me just live with my dad. I haven't spoken a word to my mom in 15 years. She would show up to my games alone. Sometimes I would ask my dad to tell her to leave. Sometimes I didn't even notice she was there. She would try talking to me after, and I would walk right past her. I cut her whole family off besides a few of my cousins that were around my age. She showed up to my high school graduation, and I asked a couple teachers to remove her, and they did. She never dated anyone else to my knowledge, and was still attempting to reconcile with my dad a few years before he passed, calling it the biggest mistake of her life and begging my dad to forgive her. When my dad passed a couple years ago, she tried to show up to the funeral, and I met her outside to ask her to leave. My fiancée Rachel was with me when I did this, and my mom cried upon learning we were engaged. Rachel introduced herself as my fiancée, saying she couldn't believe I hated her still this many years later. So last week I received a letter from my mom with a large check inside. In the letter she said she couldn't live knowing she wouldn't be invited to her only child's wedding, that her whole family is hurt that I cut them off, and that she had been keeping tabs on me all these years through my cousin's updates, out of respect for me, but couldn't handle not being at the wedding. I ripped the check up and sent it back to the return address. She shouldn't have even known my address as I keep her blocked on all social media. I called up my cousins who admitted that since I was 14, they have been providing my mom with updates on me, prom pics, college updates, engagement photos, and they sent her my address. I was so mad that I told them they wouldn't be invited to the wedding anymore, because I don't want my mom getting access to it. Rachel is saying I'm going too far now, and uninviting my cousins along with freezing out my mom's whole family because of her actions is in a whole move. Am I the a-hole? Edit. The cheating was with a teammate's dad. This was highly embarrassing for me and caused me to have to move towns, caused me to lose friends. Am I the a-hole for not wanting my husband to walk his sister down the aisle? My husband, Mike 37, is the eldest in his family. He's pretty close with his sister Beth, 28, and they spend almost all week together. Beth had issues with her father growing up. She went no contact with him after he took her first car and damaged it. She only remained in contact with Mike since everybody else judged her for going no contact. She's getting married to her fiancé of 3 years. From what I understand, she and her dad are slowly getting reconciled, but she made it clear she wants him to take no part in the wedding. She asked Mike if he could walk her down the aisle, and he agreed. I have to say that I was taken aback, and it felt a bit odd for me because her dad is alive. They're on speaking terms again. He's gonna be there at the wedding, so the logical thing to do is have him walk her down the aisle. This role isn't for her older brother, but her father. Not to mention how Phil will feel about it. I brought this up with Beth, and she had an attitude and implied that I was just saying this and objecting because of how I feel about the situation, not how our traditions should be practiced. We got into an argument, and I went home. Mike thinks I'm being unreasonable and possibly causing him to miss something so sentimental, and that if anything, he feels honored to be asked to do this for her, and said that I should stop worrying about what others might say. Now we're having this conflict, three of us, and cannot seem to reach a solution.